The Easter table was beautiful. Mom had outdone herself with the floral centerpiece, the pastel linens, the china that only came out for holidays. Ham glazed to perfection. Scalloped potatoes. Green beans almondine. Everything looked perfect. Except for the envelope beside my plate. "What's this?" I asked, sitting down between my sister Vanessa and her husband Craig. "Just some paperwork," Vanessa said breezily, passing the rolls. "Nothing major. We can go over it after lunch." My younger brother Justin raised his wine glass. "Before we eat, I want to make a toast. To Emma, our favorite piggy bank. Always there when we need her, never asking for anything in return." Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. I forced a smile, that familiar knot forming in my stomach. "Seriously though," Justin continued, "Emma, you're amazing. Always helping family without hesitation. That's real love." Dad nodded approvingly. "That's what I raised you kids to do. Take care of each other. Emma understands that better than anyone." I opened the envelope while they started eating. Inside were loan documents. $50,000. My signature was already on them. Except I'd never seen these papers before in my life. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "what is this?" "Oh, that." She waved her fork dismissively. "Just formalizing the loan you gave us last month. For Craig's business expansion. Our accountant said we needed proper documentation for tax purposes." "I never gave you a loan last month." Vanessa laughed. "Yes, you did. The $50,000 for the equipment. Don't you remember? We talked about it at Mom's birthday." I hadn't been at Mom's birthday. I'd been in New York for a conference. "I wasn't at Mom's birthday," I said. "Sure you were," Craig said, not looking up from his plate. "We all were. Family party, remember? I was in New York. I sent flowers." The table went quiet for a moment. Then Mom jumped in. "You're probably just confused, honey. You're always traveling. It's hard to keep track." I looked at the signature on the documents. It was close to mine, but the loops were wrong. The pressure was different. Someone had practiced, but not well enough. "This isn't my signature," I said. Justin laughed nervously. "Emma, come on. Don't be dramatic. It's Easter. Someone forged my signature on loan documents for $50,000, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "That's bank fraud." "Bank fraud." Vanessa's face flushed. "Jesus, Emma. It's family. We needed the money. You always help anyway. We just streamlined the process." "Streamlined the process," I repeated. "By forging my signature and taking $50,000 without asking me." Dad set down his fork hard. "Emma, that's enough. Your sister needed help. You have the money. Stop making this into something it's not." "What is it, Dad?" "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like identity theft and fraud." "It's family helping family," Mom said firmly. "Now put those papers away and let's enjoy Easter dinner. We can discuss this later." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I think we should discuss it now. Especially since this isn't the first time." I pulled up my banking app and started scrolling. February, $20,000 withdrawn from my savings. I never authorized that. December, $15,000 transferred to Justin's account. November, $30,000 to a business account registered to Craig. Craig's face went pale. How did I know?" I finished. "Because I check my accounts daily. I'm a financial analyst. It's literally my job. What I want to know is how you've been accessing my accounts." Vanessa and Justin exchanged glances. Mom suddenly became very interested in her ham. "Answer me," I said. "How have you been taking money from my accounts?" "We added ourselves as authorized users," Justin finally admitted. "A couple years ago. You left your laptop here during Christmas. Your banking passwords were saved. You've had access to my accounts for 2 years," I said slowly. "How much have you taken?" "We didn't take anything," Vanessa protested. "We borrowed it. Family loans. We always planned to pay you back." "How much?" No one answered. I did the math in my head, scrolling through transactions. $375,000. Over 2 years. You've stolen $375,000 from me. It's not stealing. Mom's voice rose. Your family. What's yours is ours. That's how family works. No, I said quietly. That's how theft works. Dad stood, his face red. Emma Louise Patterson, you will not accuse your family of theft. We raised you. We're entitled to your support. You're entitled to nothing, I said, standing as well. And you definitely aren't entitled to forge my signature and drain my accounts. You live like you're broke anyway, Justin said defensively. That tiny condo, the old Prius, shopping at Target. You clearly don't need the money. We have real expenses. Real lives. I have a real life, I said. You just assumed I didn't because I'm 32 and single. You assumed my life matters less. My money matters less. I matter less. That's not true, Vanessa said, but her voice wavered. We love you. You love my money, I corrected. There's a difference. My phone buzzed. A text from my guest, outside. Ready when you are. Actually, I said, there's someone I'd like you to meet. I invited him to join us for dessert. You invited someone? Mom looked horrified. Emma, this is family time. He'll just take a minute, I said, walking to the front door. Director Michael Chin of the SE stood on the porch, impeccable in his suit despite it being Easter Sunday. At 60 he commanded respect just by existing. Thank you for coming, Director Chin, I said. Of course, Emma. Though I wish you'd called me under better circumstances. I led him into the dining room. My family stared, forks frozen halfway to their mouths. Everyone, this is Director Michael Chin. He heads the Securities and Exchange Commission's Division of Enforcement. Director Chin, this is my family. The room was absolutely silent. Good afternoon, Director Chin said pleasantly. I apologize for interrupting your holiday. Emma called me this morning with some concerning information. I thought it best to address it immediately. The SEC? Craig's voice cracked. Why is the SEC here? Emma is not just a financial analyst, Director Chin said, pulling documents from his briefcase. She's the founder and CEO of Patterson Investment Group, a private equity firm managing approximately $2.4 billion in assets. Vanessa dropped her fork. It clattered against her plate, the sound deafening in the silence. Emma also serves on the board of 3 Fortune 500 companies and sits on the Federal Reserve's Advisory Committee, Director Chin continued. She's one of the most respected financial minds in the country. Which is why, when she called me this morning about systematic theft from her personal accounts, I took it very seriously. 2.4 billion? Justin's voice was barely a whisper. Her firm manages that, yes, Director Chin confirmed. Her personal net worth is approximately $380 million. The $375,000 taken from her accounts? That's less than 0.1% of her wealth. But it's still theft. Mom was shaking her head. This is impossible. Emma lives in a small condo. She drives a Prius. She wears clothes from Target. I live in a penthouse condo worth $3.2 million, I said quietly. I drive a Prius because it's environmentally responsible. I shop at Target because their clothes are comfortable and well-made. I don't need to prove my worth with expensive brands. The Patterson Investment Group, Dad said slowly. That's the firm that restructured Titanium Tech. That was national news. That was, you. Yes, I said. I've been featured in Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg, and the Wall Street Journal. I testified before Congress last year about financial regulation. None of you noticed because none of you ever asked about my work. You let us think you were struggling, Vanessa said, her voice hollow. I never said I was struggling. You assumed it because I didn't perform wealth the way you expected. And then you used those assumptions to justify stealing from me. Director Chin laid documents on the table, covering the Easter centerpiece. These are bank records showing unauthorized access to Emma's accounts. These are forged loan documents. These are wire transfers made without her consent. This is evidence of bank fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and forgery. All federal crimes. Craig stood abruptly. We didn't know she had money. We thought we were just helping ourselves to her emergency fund. If we'd known she was rich, you would have stolen more? I asked. Or treated me with respect. Either answer is damning. What happens now? Dad asked, his voice defeated. That depends, Director Chin said. Emma has 2 options. Option 1. She files formal complaints with the FBI, Treasury, and my office. Given the evidence, prosecution is virtually guaranteed. You'd face federal charges, likely prison time and certain financial ruin. Mom started crying. Vanessa reached for Craig's hand, both of them pale. Option 2. Justin asked. Emma has prepared settlement agreements, Director Chin said, producing documents. You return the $375,000 within 90 days. You provide documentation of every unauthorized access to her accounts. You surrender any financial information you have. You agree to zero contact unless she initiates it. You enter financial counseling. In exchange, she doesn't press charges. Return it. Vanessa's voice was panicked. We spent it. The business, the renovations, Justin's car. Then you have a problem, I said. Sell things. Take loans. Get second jobs. I don't care how you get it. But you return every dollar or I file the complaints tomorrow. How can you do this? Mom sobbed. We're your family. It's Easter. You did this, I said quietly. You stole from me for 2 years. You forged my signature. You accessed my accounts without permission. You took $375,000 and never once thought about whether I'd notice or care. You didn't even ask. Because you always said yes before, Justin said desperately. You always helped. Why would this be different? Because you never asked this time, I said. You just took. There's a difference between giving and having something stolen. You erased that difference. You made me into a resource instead of a person. Dad looked at the settlement agreements, his hands shaking. $375,000 in 90 days. That's impossible. Then you'll face federal charges, Director Chin said. Your choice. We could lose everything, Craig said. Our house, our business, our freedom. I know, I said. Now you understand how I felt this morning when I discovered you'd forged my signature. When I realized my family had been systematically stealing from me for 2 years. When I understood that everything you said about love and support was conditional on access to my money. Vanessa looked up, mascara running. If we'd known you were rich, we never would have. Stolen from me? I interrupted. That makes it worse, Vanessa. You're saying you only stole because you thought I couldn't afford to lose it. You saw someone you believed was vulnerable and you exploited them. That's not what I meant, she whispered. Yes, it is, I said. Director Chin, I think we're done here. He gathered his documents. You have 48 hours to decide. Sign the agreements and begin repayment, or Emma files federal complaints Monday morning. I stood to leave. Behind me, I heard Mom's sobs, Justin's panicked breathing, Vanessa and Craig arguing in whispers. Emma, Dad called as I reached the door. Please. It's Easter. Can't we pray about this? Ask God for guidance. I turned back. I did pray about it, Dad. This morning when I discovered what you'd done. I prayed for wisdom and strength. And I realized that forgiveness doesn't mean accepting abuse. Grace doesn't mean funding theft. And family doesn't mean letting people destroy you. But we're your family, Mom pleaded. You were, I said simply. Now you're people who stole from me. What you become after this is up to you. Director Chin and I walked out together. The Easter ham sat congealing on the table, dessert forgotten. In my car I sat for a moment, hands on the steering wheel. That was harder than you expected, Director Chin said gently. Yeah, I admitted. But necessary. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. This wasn't family helping family. This was fraud. They needed to face consequences. Will they pay it back? Maybe. Maybe not. But either way, they'll never steal from you again. I drove home to my penthouse, fed my cat, and stood on my balcony watching the sunset over the city. My phone buzzed constantly. Cousins calling, aunts texting, my uncle leaving voicemails about forgiveness and family unity. I turned off my phone. 72 hours later, all 4 signed agreements arrived via certified mail. They included detailed repayment plans. Vanessa and Craig sold their boat and Craig's sports car. Justin took a second job and moved into a cheaper apartment. My parents took out a home equity loan. The first payment arrived on schedule. Then the second. Then the third. They tried to contact me throughout. Apology emails. Cards on my birthday. Invitations to Thanksgiving to reconcile. I didn't respond. My firm closed a major deal. A $1.8 billion acquisition that made headlines. I did a segment on CNBC. Forbes put me on their cover. A cousin sent a text. Saw you on Forbes. The family is so proud. I deleted it. Proud now that they knew I was successful. Silent when they thought I was their piggy bank. The difference mattered. 9 months later, the final payment arrived. $375,000 returned in full. A note from Mom: "We're sorry. We love you. Please come home for Christmas." I filed the check and shredded the note. Because sorry means changing behavior, not just regretting consequences. And love means respecting boundaries, not testing their limits. The Easter lunch where they called me their piggy bank became the last lunch we ever shared. And honestly, my holidays have been much more peaceful ever since. The SEC director stood up for me that day. But more importantly, I stood up for myself. Best Easter gift I ever gave myself. 2 years later, I endowed a scholarship at my alma mater, the Patterson Fund for Financial Independence. Full rides for students from families who don't support their dreams. The application asked one question: has your family ever made you feel small for being financially responsible? I read every application personally. Funded 40 students the first year. At the award ceremony, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. My family called me their ATM too. Thank you for understanding. You're not an ATM, I told her. You're a person with worth beyond your bank account. She nodded. So are you. Finally, someone got it right.